Part 2, starting on page 119. So at this section, first of all, I decided I needed more facial hair. Grandfather recommends that grandmother write her life story. He says on page 119, I thought maybe if she could express herself rather than suffer herself, if she had a way to relieve the burden, she could basically end up being a happier person, which is what he needs to do. Okay, so if he could tell his story and communicate to people, he might be able to be better off too. She says, I don't know how to write. I told her there's nothing to know, just let it come out. She put her hands on the typewriter like a blind person feeling someone's face for the first time. I've never used one before. I told her, just press the keys. She said she would try, and though I'd known how to use a typewriter ever since I was a boy, trying was more than I could ever do. So she spends months working on her life story, and she goes and sits in her bedroom from right when they get up in the morning till night and types and types and types and types. When it's finally done on page 120, this part was really sad to me. My life. Excuse me? I asked by shrugging my shoulders. She tapped the page. My life, she said again. I riffled through the pages. There must have been 1,000 of them. I put the stack down. What is this? I asked her by putting her palms on the tops of my hands and then turning my palms upward, flipping her hands off of mine. So what he did to ask her what's this is he took her hand, put it on top of his hand, and flipped them over. Again, it's a gesture which to him makes sense, and what he's communicating tries to make sense. To her, that's just a nonsense gesture. She could take from that whatever she thinks. My life, she said so proudly. I've just made it up to the present moment, just now. I'm all caught up with myself. The last thing I wrote was, I'm going to show him what I've written, and I hope he loves it. I picked up the pages and wandered through them, trying to find the one on which she was born, her first love, when she last saw her parents, and I was looking for Anna too. I searched and searched. I got a little paper cut on my forefinger and bled a little flower onto the page on which I should have been seen her kissing someone, and all I saw was nothing. So he doesn't know what's going on, but she spent months writing, and there's nothing there at all. It's another nothing zone. Her life is nothing. And going on to page 124, he realizes that when Anna had died, Anna had given him this typewriter, and he'd taken the ribbon out of it. If you take the ribbon out of a typewriter, it's like taking the ink out of a printer, and nothing comes out of it. So basically, he thinks that she has been in there typing away, but hasn't been typing anything and doesn't realize it. I felt her grasp my arm when we walked, and I heard her say, my eyes are crummy, but I thought it was a way to touch me, another figure of speech. Why didn't she ask for help? Why, instead, did she ask for all those magazines and papers if she couldn't see them? Was that how she asked for help? Was that why she always held so tightly to railings, and she wouldn't cook with me watching, or change her clothes with me watching, or open doors? Did she always have something to read in front of her so she wouldn't have to look at anything else? All the words I'd written to her over all those years, had I never said anything to her at all? Wonderful, I told her, by rubbing her shoulder in a certain way that's between us. Wonderful. So it's another example of having a mustache right on your nose. He rubbed her shoulder like this. To him, that means it's wonderful. It's wonderful. Again, to her, he's just rubbing her shoulder. Tell me what you think. I put her hand on the side of my face, and I tilted my head toward my shoulder. In the context in which she thought our conversation was taking place, that meant, I can't read it like this. I'll take it to the bedroom. I'll read it slowly, carefully. I'll give your life story what it deserves. But in what I knew to be the context of our conversation, it meant I've failed you. These two had a conversation, and they didn't say anything. They think they're communicating back and forth to each other. But, like a lot of relationships that go on for a long time, you, as grandfather said, you take more and more for granted, and less is understood. And this is what's going on between them. They think they're communicating. He thinks he's giving her all these messages, and in reality, she may not have any idea what those things mean. Now, do you know what time it is? When we get all these pages with the single line, we're kind of moving around in different time frames. And grandfather is at the airport. Going on a little bit, grandfather retells the story of the first time he and Anna had sex together. We get another, do you know what time it is? He keeps asking people at the airport. On 1:30, he's still feeling really bad about what happened with her biography. I thumb through the blank pages and gesture laughter and gesture tears. If she asks what I'm laughing or crying about, I tap my finger on the page, and if she asks why, I press her hand against her heart and then against my heart, or I touch her forefinger to the mirror, or touch it quickly against the hot plate. Sometimes I wonder if she knows. So when he's explaining what he thinks is entertaining or thinks is sad, he's just doing a bunch of random things. And, if we go back to postmodernism and talk about words basically being meaningless symbols, they're as meaningless as using these random facial expressions and hand gestures that he's using. I wonder in my nothingest moments if she's testing me, if she types nonsense all day long, or types nothing at all, just to see what I'll do in response. She wants to know if I love her, and that's all anyone wants from anyone else. Not love itself, but the knowledge that love is there, like new batteries in a flashlight in the emergency kit in the hall closet. So he's kind of wondering whether she intentionally is testing him, and intentionally didn't write anything, to see how he's going to react to what she didn't write. Is he going to say, this is nothing, you didn't do anything for all these months? Or, as is another thing with postmodernism, is he going to create another reality? Don't let anybody see it, I told her that morning she first showed it to me. And maybe I was trying to protect her, and maybe I was trying to protect myself. We'll have it be our secret until it's perfect. We'll work on it together. We'll make it the greatest book anyone's ever written. And again, he didn't say any of those things to her. That was all done through facial expression or gestures. You think that's possible, she asked? Outside, leaves fell from the trees. Inside, we're letting go of our concern for that kind of truth. The kind of truth they're letting go from is reality. They're creating their own reality. There's nothing written on those pages. And he is telling her, we'll make this the greatest life story that's ever been written. His idea of what's going on is that she's testing him, and she wants to see, it's on my nose again, she wants to see if he's willing to go with her on this. And basically imagine that this is what's going on. If you think back to when grandmother wrote about the girl who asked her dad for a dove, and she got a scarf, and she loved her dad so much she pretended that the scarf was a dove. This is kind of what's going on in this scene. And she's trying to, at least Thomas thinks that she's testing him to see how much he loves her, and if he's willing to go with her on that. Excuse me, do you know where we get tickets? On the next page. So he's planning to leave at the airport. On 132, the problem is I have so much to tell you. The problem isn't that I'm running out of time, I'm running out of room. This book is filling up, there couldn't be enough pages. I looked around the apartment this morning for one last time and there was writing everywhere, filling the walls and the mirrors. These are all the things he needs to say but is unable to. There's so much to express, I'm sorry. That's what I've been trying to say to you. I'm sorry for everything. For having said goodbye to Anna when maybe I could have saved her and our idea or at least died with them. I'm sorry for my inability to let the unimportant things go, for my inability to hold on to the important things. I'm sorry for what I'm about to do to you, your mother, and to you. I'm sorry I'll never be able to see your face and feed you and tell you bedtime stories. I've tried in my own way to explain myself. But when I think of your mother's life story, I know I haven't explained a thing. She and I are no different. I've been writing nothing too. Because he hasn't been saying anything. The things he needs to say, he can't, and he won't. On page 133, there's a really good line that I like on here, and it says, I thought it's a shame that we have to live, but it's a tragedy that we only get to live one life, because if I had two lives, I would have spent one with her. Going on a little bit, at the end of this chapter, we get these lines that he'd been writing out. I want to buy tickets to Dresden. What are you doing here? You should go home. You should be in bed. And this is the conversation because grandmother confronted him at the airport. And this is his response to what she's saying. You should go home. You should be in bed. Let me take you home. And she says, no. He says, you're being crazy. You're going to catch a cold. She says, I have a cold. He said, you're going to catch a colder. And that's where we're at. So the moment right before he leaves is where this chapter ends off. I'm going to go shave some of my facial